teachers who regularly get invited to high school reunions. What are the most amazing transformations, common patterns, epic stories, saddest declines etc. you've seen through the years? In high school I was pretty good friends with a guy that was a bit overweight, about 6 feet 4 inches, really smart and a bit nerdy. Lost track of him after high school but saw him at our 10-year reunion. He was the talk of the reunion. Still tall, lost all the weight and was in great shape, had long hair like Fabio and was a doctor. He showed up with a beautiful wife. He gave us his contact info and invited us to Atlanta to stay with him in his huge house. After the reunion I tried to get in touch. Contact info didn't work, and through some sleuthing I found out he was neither married nor a doctor. He was still in good shape, can't fake that, but faked everything else. What a twist. Did anyone else in your circle try the same thing and found out he was a fraud? Did you ever find out what he actually did? He worked in a medical office, but wasn't a doctor. He was like a medical assistant or something like that. Not a PA or an ARNP. Going to post my mom's story because she doesn't have an account. She was a home economics teacher and specifically she had one class called relationship psychology where every day to start the class she would read through that cheesy Dear Abby newspaper advice column to talk with the class on how they would respond to the problem. One day ahead of class she noticed that a letter published talked about a kid who sounded a lot like a student in her class and was located in our hometown. They always end the letter with a name and city and my mom was always very involved with her students and their personal lives. The letter talked about a kid who was terrified of going to college and how he got rejected from all the schools he wanted to go to, had no self-confidence, abusive father, money problems, that he would lose all his close friends, couldn't stand the idea of leaving his disabled mother, and that he felt enormous pressure as a first-gen college student and had ultimately decided not to go to college at all. She read it to the class and they discussed and she could tell the boy in her class was very uncomfortable. After class she asked him about it and it was in fact a letter written by him. He never thought it would get published and responded to by the Dear Abby column and was super embarrassed. He, like most students, never even knew what the Dear Abby column was until they took her class. Afterwards she talked through everything with him and talked with his mother and evaluated his options on how best to approach college. She taught him finances, loans, scholarship options, his mom's condition, and everything and got him to a place where he felt better about his future. 4 years later the kid ended up being the speaker at his college graduation of over 7,000 kids, met his wife at college, all of his groomsmen, and got a killer job through his career fair on campus before graduating. She flew out and attended as he invited her. Was always blown away by that. Used to have this one kid in my art class in senior high who treated it like one of those easy to pass classes. He was a big guy, much bigger than the other students, and he'd use his size and strength to bully other kids. The smaller ones. He was a little bitch underneath it all. He would draw guns and crosses in his art book with pseudo gangster sayings like live by da gun, die by da gun, and f*** da police. You get the idea. Come reunion time, which was some 5 years later, he's found a girl who really reined him in and, kind of like a hunter taming a wolf, really turned him into a good man. They had a baby boy, and he's a responsible father and does yoga on the rocks by the beach. Complete 180. I do think he was a good guy underneath it all, he just needed direction from someone who could break down his walls. Way nicer than I thought this was going. Good for him. I thought he was going to die how he lived, by da gun. A previous student of mine grew up in a horrible home situation. This individual was really smart and I did my best to help them apply, receive many scholarships and grants, and eventually went to an Ivy League school to get away from their abusive home life. They made it big, and I mean big time millionaire. Made their family jealous, but in the end their hard work paid off. It was great to see and I was so proud of what they'd become. Edit. The best thing was seeing them break the chain. The family had problems going back numerous generations, and to see this generation change was all worth it. That's amazing. Seems like you're a good teacher too, since you cared about that kid's life and helped him out with applications too. You can be proud of yourself too. I appreciate that, but I know many teachers who are better people than me. I'm just happy that our paths crossed in life so that I could help this person. Knowing they're happy now and living a good life is what makes it worth it for me. We still keep in touch actually. I'm their kid's godparent. This is so heartwarming. The main thing is that you cared and did more than necessary for your job to help out, and I think it's a good thing. Many teachers don't seem to give a damn about their students, and I always enjoy passionate teachers who do such things like you. One kid grew up to be that guy, treading the line between jolly neckbeard and somewhat scary incel. I saw him after a full 12 years had passed. The worst part is, he was one of the most popular and socially adjusted kids in school. Always invited to parties, girls always trying to spend time with him. He'd always get away with absurd things in school because even the teachers liked him. He was just really funny and naturally charismatic. Not to mention fit and handsome. However, he was strictly religious, so he never had sex with any girls. A few years after graduation, he became an atheist, or just a Gnostic, but by this time he had a dead-end job at a supermarket, had gained weight and was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z because he related to unleashing his true power. So he spent like 5 years desperately messaging girls from HS, trying to say hey I can have sex now, but he was just not that attractive anymore and his social skills had deteriorated tremendously. He was rejected by every single girl that was pining over him just a few years ago, in high school. He ended up publicly coming out as a proud incel 2 years before the reunion, in a post where he declared war on women and socially adjusted men. He often posted about being a virgin and how Christianity basically made him an incel because he missed out every chance for sex he ever had. So at the reunion, he came wearing a white t-shirt with the words F you. He'd walk up to now married women that he had previously solicited and just smirked silently, waiting for them to read the shirt. He was thrown out by the venue after about 40 minutes since so many people complained of his creepy behavior. Not really a surprise, but the guy who used to bully me all the time is basically homeless. He refuses to go back to his parents. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. He just never got out of the rebel teen phase, and spends his nights either couch surfing at a mate's or sleeping on the streets if no one can take him in. Any job he gets he stays at until he has enough money for whatever he wants at the time and then quits. Skates all the time and wants to go pro, but spends all his time smoking weed and drinking, then crying about how his life doesn't go anywhere. People at the reunion were astounded that he had just not changed one bit. He still used the slang he used back then and even tried to get his old mates to tease me like they used to, but they didn't because they're all adults now with jobs and some even have kids. He was kicked out of the venue because he tried to pick a fight with the guy who laughed at him for how he was dressed. 30-year-old man dressed as a teenager. There were a couple of guys like that at my 10-year. Walked in like they owned the place, thought the status quo hadn't changed, then F off out the door when they realized that nobody really gave a shit about high school politics 10 years after the fact. A former student of mine grew up in an ultra-conservative Christian home. He and his siblings were never allowed to socialize with other students during lunch and recess. Whenever they had free time at school they had to read their Bibles. In science class they were forbidden to learn about evolution. Every essay, short story, personal narrative, and poem he wrote for me involved some kind of Christian theme. When he graduated, he immediately enrolled in a big seminary in our area, and that was the last I heard of him until his class invited me to their 10-year reunion. This same kid showed up with sleeve tattoos, piercings everywhere, slamming beer after beer after beer and smoking like a locomotive. When I asked what he was doing now, he responded he currently was a bouncer at a strip club. Wholesome. Religion does shit to you, and I'm not surprised by his turnaround. A lot of escapees go wild as a way of making up for a stolen life. Not a teacher, but there was a guy who was the stereotypical jock in high school. Very unemotional, stoic, etc. Then he went into the military and got PTSD. Now he is a hippie and psychotherapist 180 degree. Not a teacher, but a girl I used to be interested in since elementary school. We were really close friends. I'd even worked for her dad when I was a kid, stuffing envelopes for him to send out to his clients. Just basic stuff that he offered us 10 cents per envelope to be a nice guy. In high school, we drifted a little bit apart, and she started dating another friend of mine who shortly after opted out of that relationship because she wanted him to make her pregnant. Fast forward a couple years after graduation, she did have children, who she then suffocated when they were 3 years old and 22 months old. Sentenced to over 40 years in jail. She was smart, pretty, and charming, and now she might never see the outside world again. Needless to say, she didn't make it to the 10-year reunion. Thanks for watching. Now here are some cute puppies.